Hey everyone, welcome back to Inside the Kingdom, the show where we talk to the people who make comics matter. I'm your host, Alex, of course, and today we're celebrating something a little different. Comics Kingdom is stepping into the indie spotlight, and we're joining MoCCA Arts Fest here in New York City, March 28th and 29th. If you've never been, MoCCA is one of the most important festivals for independent cartooning in the country. It's where emerging voices, established creators, and people who just really love weird little zines all collide in the best way. And today I'm joined by two incredible cartoonists who live right at that intersection. Maritsa Patrinos, met before, whose work blends humor, emotion, sharp observation in a way that sneaks up on you, and she loves cats. And Isabella Bannerman, a longtime force in comics, known for her work on Six Chicks and a career that bridges classic newspaper cartooning and independent storytelling. We're talking about MoCCA, indie comics, and how all of the energy connects back to the world of Comics Kingdom. Hello, ladies. How are you?
Good.
Very well, thank you.
Thank you for joining. Isabella, obviously a long time coming. I'm so happy that you're here joining us. Both of you work on Six Chicks. This is really fun. We should actually do a future episode with the Six Chicks Collective and have everyone on. That'd be fun to get all schedules aligned and just do a good retrospective on Six Chicks and where it's at and all the fun stuff that's there. But today we're talking MoCCA. What's new with you all as you prepare for MoCCA?
Well, I'm really excited to be presenting a book that was published in August, and it's kind of a culmination of a lot of the work that I've done over the years for World War III Illustrated. And I'm taking a kind of an illustrated memoir of my mom's experiences from World War II Italy, where she was living under the regime of Mussolini. And so it's a kind of an anthology-style comic book of every different country. So each chapter is a different country and a different person's experience. So I'm just really excited to present that for the first time.
Oh, well, I'm excited to see that. Yeah, that sounds amazing. How long have you been, how long has that been
The
undergoing
first
work?
published chapter was in 2017.
Wow.
So, and it's still just one chapter. Because my mom has a lot of stories. So I'm kind of like little by little getting them put together.
Oh, that's amazing. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, me
Thanks.
too. Yeah,
How
that
about
sounds
yourself,
amazing.
Maritza?
Oh, I'm gonna be there with some zines. I've got like 3 issues of Joy. I've got 3 mini zines of Working Cats. Always there to represent the cats. Some new prints and stuff. I've got new stickers and stuff. I've been selling a sticker recently to support NPR because public media has been going away, so I'm trying to like raise funds for that. But yeah, going back into the arsenal, reprinting a lot of things. MoCCA's always a great time. I'm always excited for it.
Yeah, we were just waxing a little bit long before in the green room if you will, talking about that energy, the difference between, conventions and so on. And yeah, MoCCA, I attended as a fan, then I attended as employee a few years ago. And now obviously obviously participating with MoCCA and it is such a fun time. I do love the energy that's there and how different and distinct it is. And that indie scene, it does revitalize a lot. You come back with a lot of energy and ideas and it's a moment to just celebrate, I think. And so it's a good weekend. So if anyone is listening to this now and you've never wanted, not never wanted to, if you've ever been interested in going, do. Please go hang out. It's a great event. It's not that expensive in the world of how going out can be, especially in the city. So it's a good exercise if you want to spend a good Saturday afternoon or something, or Sunday for that matter. And that's my MoCCA plug.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
it's a good time. You should come.
yeah, right. I should tell the society, hey, FYI. Well, let's start simple, right? Let's talk about MoCCA and memories. So let's start off. Maybe Isabella, do you remember your first MoCCA Fest?
Yes, it was in the 80s.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure that there was a MoCCA Fest back then, and it was in the Puck Building. So it was one floor of the Puck Building on Lafayette and Houston, and it was pretty small, but I do remember that Top Shelf Comics existed.
Yeah.
And I could be off by a decade here. but it was really fun. It was really fun, and you would just definitely see like piles of self photocopied things that people had with them. Um, so very much a feeling of like, okay, this is handmade, this is homemade, and World War III Illustrated has definitely been going since the 1980s, and I was a part of it then, and they would always be represented there. And this year they're not, so I'm bringing their latest issue with me. They didn't get a table this year, but it's definitely has always been on their radar. So
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
that's fun. How about you, Maritza? Do you remember your first?
Yeah, I think mine was probably in 2009 or 2010, because I was part of the campus comic book at Pratt Institute where I went to school, called the Static Fish, which still exists. It's still going. Um, yeah, I think that was, with the whole school shared one table and we all had like one little section for our one little zine or something. We just kind of maxed out the entire table with all of our stuff, and there were like probably like 8 of us squished together behind the table, um doing this for the first time. It was a very like informative experience because there's a lot of nuance and a lot to learn from behind the table that you really only learn by doing it. So we were all kind of making it up as we went and trying to answer questions like, how much should I charge for this? And how many copies should I bring? And like, how should we organize the table? We kind of, didn't really have a lot of plans for that. We just kind of figured that out by doing it.
Funny story. Actually, you played that role for us this year, right? So we reached out to Maritza, my team and I, and Maritza, how much should we charge for this?
Yeah,
Like, how do we set up this table? Literally those verbatim questions, which is really funny to see that kind of 360 at this. How does that feel? And like you're
I
now an elder
know.
statesman.
Oh, you got a lot more resources than I did when I was 20 or whatever. So
That's fair. That
yeah.
is fair. That is fair.
Okay, and since
W-
this is recorded, I just have to say, because I don't know what's going to get edited or not, but I am horribly wrong. Whatever I went to in the 1980s was not the MoCCA Festival. It was
Oh,
something
really?
else. Because the first one, according to Wikipedia, the first one was in the Puck Building in 2002. And then it was in the
Uh,
Armory Building, and then it was, so, but the only thing I can say to redeem myself is that I have been to it at all of those locations.
well, it's easy to get that mixed up, right? All these they move
yeah.
pieces all over the place, and time does have a way of doing that and creeping into different eras.
And it may have existed in a different under a different
Right.
name and then evolved to become
Mm.
MoCCA Fest. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
the name MoCCA is kind of a relic at this point because that was like Museum of Comic and Cartooning Art, which I don't think really exists anymore in the museum form. It was kind of an entity that I think was absorbed by the Society of Illustrators a number of years
Yeah.
back.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I my first one was at the Armory. Yeah, very very different space.
I think no, that wasn't the Army. Last year I went to Brooklyn Comic Con,
Mm.
but that wasn't the Armory. Or maybe it was. I don't know. We won't go long in there. But actually, that segues into a perfect question here, because I know you mentioned earlier that you also table at Small Press Expo. Isabella, I know you attend others as well. What makes MoCCA different from other conventions?
Um,
The society's presence, I think, has made a
yeah.
big difference to it. They weren't always a big presence in it, but they have a very like they have a very strong voice. I think they have a distinct voice when it comes to comics and stuff. I think like one of the things that I really appreciate about MoCCA, just I'm a little bit biased because I love to do risograph printing, is that they have
Hmm.
an entire section of the festival devoted to the SVA Reso Lab where they bring in probably like 3 or 4 printers, like 3 or 4 risograph machines, and they do demos and they allow people to come in and experiment with it if you're interested in risograph printing. So it's kind of a hands-on aspect to that festival that I don't think any other festival really has.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, like I think it's like also very kid friendly in that way. You can come in and get your hands dirty, and you could come do your Christmas shopping, or you could come, educate yourself, but you can also like come in and like actually make stuff for yourself there. So it's a very well-rounded festival in that way, I think.
Yeah, and the School of Visual Arts is also represented there as well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot, definitely, probably every major New York art school has a presence there, which is always great to see. It's a kind of it's a steady presence that's consistent every year, but there's always different people behind the table. So you kind of get a different sense of like what young people are doing as they emerge into the field. It's great. What's a way to keep it really fresh, I think.
Yeah, that's a great call. I do experience that myself. Again, being on the outside looking in, to some degree. I see that over and over again every time I go to MoCCA, just how fresh everything is, and how you see art moving, and that's the juice behind it. I love that the
Yeah.
colleges are represented, and the youth really is represented there. I think you get to see a lot of, to your point, we talked about Comic Con earlier. You see a lot of established entities and even established art styles at different festivals, and I like the variety that I think MoCCA
Yeah.
comes to the table with or has represented. Yes. How about yourself, Isabella?
Yeah, I mean that is so exciting. Like I remember when stickers started to become really big at MoCCA Fest, and how fun that is, and how accessible it is. And I think the one of the great things about comic art is that it is so accessible. Like you can literally start with a pen and a piece of paper and nothing else, and you can fold it into four quarters and have your zine. And to have students who are that much closer to that point of entry just is very exciting. It's very contagious. Yeah.
Yeah, that speaking of that, I mean, the fact that you can take, you said just build your own zine to get published and syndicated on like a platform like ours, et cetera, like that variety of cartooning and, web cartooning and comic books and all sorts of stuff that goes on in the space. I think that to me is the magic behind all of this. I always speak glowingly when I talk to cartoonists or even fans and people that, in my walk of life, just personal life, ask me what I do for a living. And they live outside of this realm. And so I think it's easy to lose sight of the fact that this is magic that everyone is creating and like playing with, and it is fun. It is really really fun to be in that world. Speaking of that, you know, on the independent level specifically, cartooning has always been where like a lot of innovation happens. To your point, Isabella, for mini comics to like web comics, but what is, I guess maybe this question to you is about what does independent cartooning actually mean to you right now?
I think it is so important, especially nowadays, because the main what they call the quote unquote mainstream press is becoming so oppressed. And Maritsa was talking about
Great point.
how well she wanted to support NPR and you know people who have a diversity of voices or have something to say about what's going on around them. Um, so it's very important to have an outlet for these things, and some of it can happen online, but for it to happen as well in person is it's intangible, but I know it's incredibly valuable. Um, and to meet, you're more likely to meet other creators who are also fans. You're more likely to meet. How valuable is it to actually meet somebody who's a fan or who may not have heard of you before, and immediately you get their feedback like in person,
Yeah.
and you can have a nice chat, and that's not so easy to come by nowadays.
Yeah, that's true. Had I guess how's that changed? Has it changed since you first started?
Well, actually, in a lot of ways, in terms of independent comics and the work that I did with World War III Illustrator, it was in those days it was more visible because you would do the thing of like having an event. There would be there would be wheat paste posters all over the place, and in some way, and you would buy the comic book. Things were more physical, right? So I still am old enough to remember that digital divide when it first occurred, and I do miss some of that, the physicality of
Yeah.
those days. And MoCCA Fest kind of gives it back to you.
That's true. That's true. How about you, Maritsa? How's that changed for you
You
since you
know,
first started?
I mean, I don't have as much experience as Isabella, but I would agree with that definitely. I think like it's less about how it's changed and more about how the value of it has increased because we don't have as much of it as we used to have.
Yeah.
I think like I've talked about this with you, Alex, but from a teaching perspective, we're definitely in a transitionary era when it comes to art and media, because we have everything's very digital. The media cycle moves very fast. There's like the introduction of AI and everything. But when I talk to younger people who are getting into the industry, they place so much more value in things created by hand and things that exist only like in person. The more that they spend their life online, the more that they value getting a break from that. And every
Yeah.
time they get an assignment that's like, you have to do this by hand, they're very relieved because they are so used to having to do everything digitally all the time and use
Yeah.
software to make everything. And the idea of doing something by hand it is it's a little sad that it's a novelty, but it's
Yeah.
so much it is very appreciated. And an ecosystem like MoCCA that is celebrated, and I think it's kind of a breath of fresh air for a lot of people to come in and be like, oh my god, it's still alive. Like this is all exists and it's in person, and
Yeah.
like you can only experience this by being here, or like art objects have value beyond me like taking a video of it and posting it online. So it's really encouraging in that
Yeah.
way. It makes me optimistic about how when you get really down on yourself, especially when you're working in a silo thinking like, oh, art is dead, my medium's going away, but it never does really die. Like I think as long as there are people who want it and there's people who like to make it, it's never really gonna die. So MoCCA's still like going strong, I think. It's
Yeah. Yeah. I think
such a relief.
if I'm not mistaken, I believe last year was one of their larger crowds.
Yeah,
I think they're expecting the same this year. So you're absolutely right. I think excuse me. I think we're all from we remember the time an analog era before digital ushered in, right? And so I still remember the good old landline. I still remember post no
yeah,
bills. I still remember billboards and all that stuff. And I miss that stuff too. So yeah, me being someone that's transitioned and seen that digital era, I can appreciate something like MoCCA. But to your point, that's actually a wonderful call out there. The new generation that did not come up with that analog at all and have only been steeped in digital, having them experience this or being able to experience this, I think it's probably exactly that. It's not surprising
yeah,
that that's monumental to them to be able to touch something and see it physically being created or even being tasked with it as a student. Like that's an awesome change.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a fun one. That's actually a really fun one. Do you think do you think the line between indie and mainstream is getting blurrier?
I think so. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. I,
How
I
so?
think I think probably because of social media, because um, you can go viral and you can make that leap from just producing things,
Great
from
point.
your phone or whatever, and then having it get noticed. Um, and I think the audiences are, that is, I mean, the social media aspect of MoCCA Fest, I think, is also really fun because you kind of sense that electricity of like, um, people, oh, so and so is going to be here, or so and so is here, and it happens in the moment, and I think that is part of the fun of it. So yeah, I think there has been some leveling of the playing field because of our digital era.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the effect of social media on everything has just changed just about everything.
Yeah.
You can go viral or infamous, right? You can be famous or infamous or
Sure.
just about anything, which, we can argue for better or for worse at these days. But I guess, Maritza, Is there something is there something that indie spaces still do better than mainstream or anywhere else?
Well, I mean, mainstream, I think, like, is a maybe kind of a subjective term. I mean, like, does
True.
mainstream mean like you have a publishing deal with a major publisher, or that, you are making a certain amount of brand money or something? I guess it
True.
depends on really what that means. Um, is, is the question like what does an indie like?
Yeah, I guess like an indie space, maybe like a MoCCA, like I guess operating under yeah, you know what? That is a tough nugget to crack because even I am peeling back the onion to your point, Isabella, we talked about earlier on the business side of things. Mainstream means a lot of things now.
Yeah,
Mainstream, everything is so fragmented and niche that you can be mainstream but not known by 90% of the world. But you're mainstream, you've made it, but you're in this niche.
yeah.
And it's a very different world because of how technologically advanced and separated, unfortunately, we are. Thanks to the fact that we can propagate so widely now and we can distribute so widely so easily. Right?
It is really interesting. I can think of a kind of example that kind of flips it on its head with what's happening now. So, Ann Telnis very briefly at the beginning, she was a member of Six Chicks, and she went on to be hired by the Washington Post,
Mhm,
and then she had a cartoon that she did about our current administration that was like pointing fingers very directly at
mhm,
some of the corruption that's happening, and she was censored, and so she quit. And then she started a Substack,
mhm.
and the Substack is growing, and it's kind of a paradoxical situation because on the one hand, she's building an audience that maybe she never had before,
Right.
but at the same time, the fact that the kind of work that she wants to do and the expression that she has is no longer available in a major Washington Post newspaper, that is kind of a tragedy, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm still glad that these other outlets like Substack do exist. And she has been at MoCCA Fest in the past
Yeah.
with her books and cartoons. And that just that one another example of you never know who you're going to see at MoCCA Fest. I met John Leguizamo there
Oh, I
one
remember
year.
that. Yeah.
And he was working with a comics artist on a project he was very passionate about. So that's just another example of the excitement that festival can generate, that sense of discovery, you know.
That is fun, yeah. Well, I've never met John Leguizamo. I would love to meet Leguizamo this year. That'd be really fun. Or Jalen Brunson, shout out any Nick fan, player that wants to make their way to MoCCA Fest. If you've seen this video, that'd be great to see you there.
You
Check us
never
out, booth
know.
63. We're there on the floor. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, that's a great point you made about, and a perfect example about mainstream. Just bring it back there before we move on. And Telnis, right? The fact that she's no longer with the Washington Post, but she is a star on Substack in her own right. And I don't know if her audience is of equal stature now on Substack or more so. Does that still make her indie now that she's not in the paper anymore, or is the paper indie? And now the world is mainstream as Substack, right? Like, and for the comics industry anyway, right? That's just a funny way to think about it, and the way audiences have moved now in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, do you define it by like the amount of eyeballs that are like looking at your work? Because I mean, the
Right,
Washington Post is kind of divisive in terms of like, is it something that we want to support when it comes to like private media, but it sits behind a paywall versus media that we consume every day that has millions and millions and millions of views for free. Is that
right.
mainstream because more people watch it, or is it indie because it's not being, it's not part of like a big private media conglomerate. Like it's hard
I
to
think
say.
I think we've just stumbled on my next piece of editorial. I'm gonna have to sit here and do some real thinking on this with the team and how we define that. I think this is a really a really meaty conversation anyway on
Yeah.
that. What is mainstream in 2026, right?
I think about it a
Um,
lot. It's what I spend a lot of time thinking about. Yeah.
well, you'll be my first interview then, Maritsa.
Okay.
No, I kid, I kid. So move on. Let's move on from that a bit. I do want to bring back zines and syndication. Obviously, Comics Kingdom. We're part of King Features. King Features Syndicate. Right, the longest running North American syndicate. Just crazy. We're 100 years young, is what we like to say. We're 100 years young. Both of you obviously exist in an interesting space where you connect to a larger platform like ours and still have independent roots. And through and through, obviously with the World War III material, you're building Working Cats alongside us as well, but obviously building that and everything else that you do at Pratt. And anyway, what was your path into King Features? And that's let's toss to this one. Let's go Maritsa, and then we go with you, Isabella.
My path into King Features was coming off of the heels of working at BuzzFeed for about 4 years. I was an in-house comic artist at BuzzFeed for that long. And I was also kind of running their social media accounts and some of the posts they were doing. Um, that again, I mean, like maybe this is a good segue because before talking about mainstream media, BuzzFeed has cut down significantly. Basically, like when I was let go, like basically the whole art team was let go. Um, it's like I think in my experience, the creatives are usually the first people to get cut when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to like big media layoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I don't know kind of like where they stand now, but I believe this is like one of these companies that are now going to start relying on AI a lot more to create their content.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lot of comics experience coming out of that job, and that's where T. Faulkner coached me, like basically immediately coming out of that job and introduced me to Six Chicks and the work that they were doing. And it really, the vision of Six Chicks really lined up with the content that I had already been making for BuzzFeed, very
Mm-hmm.
uh, like some gender commentary, but a lot of, like a lot of the themes of not even just like gender
Yeah.
themes, but just themes
Yeah.
in general about life, like kind of this New Yorker style, like ironic humor that these 5 other women had been really immersed in for way, way longer than I had been. So it was like this legacy that I was getting indoctrinated into. And it was great. Like I had this at the initial call with Isabel and the rest of the team, and it was like I was probably the youngest person on the team, and it was like looking into like a portal into my future. And it was like these 5 amazing women. Everyone had a cat on their lap, and they were all like talking about art. And I was like, this is great. I love that I'm like being ushered into this team. This is exactly what I want my future to look like.
Yeah, I mean you're right. I mean some of your biggest hits, I think, like the pasta pyramid. I think the Vinci levels there in the pasta. That's obviously a big win. But how about you, Isabella? What was your path into King Features?
It was pretty much like we first met the first original Six Chicks. We first met in the summer of 2001. Oh no, in summer of 2000. And we all met at the World Trade Center. So it was
Wow.
like
Oh man.
amazing memories of all meeting each other. And we had, I think, probably some of us had been like me, sending our single panel cartoons to Jay Kennedy. He had a platform called The New Breed, which was like, to kind of find up and coming cartoonists.
Mm-hmm.
And his mission was to create more diversity in the comics pages. And so he put together this package of Six Chicks, which was amazing. And it really did feel like a good fit because the only prompt for the strip was anything you like, make the characters female. It's like, okay. that was an easy fit, definitely. And so fun to have the perspectives of all these colleagues, Stephanie and Mary, and everybody has their own take on it. But we all have this common ground of being female creators. So people all have their other things, like Mary Lawton does paintings, and you know, Stephanie has like she's won awards from Cat Fancy magazine for her cat illustrations, and everybody has their own worlds, and then these worlds get to collide in Six Chicks, which makes it really fun.
Yeah, I think that's the best part, in my opinion, of Six Chicks, being new to it. Obviously Jay Kennedy was the stalwart that he is, and created the franchise here with King, and you all are participating in it, but I get to sit here and reap the benefits of that work, right? And see this day to day and the variety and all the stuff that you guys put together and the funny stuff and some of the hard hitting, some very worthwhile commentary I think I've seen on your part, Isabella, come through, which I think is really good to see as well. Because it's not I love that comic can be more than just a gag at times, even though obviously we still rest in that space.
Yeah,
And I really appreciate that variety and that messaging that comes through.
yeah, it's so amazing to have the freedom to go between those worlds where things are funny and things are maybe not so funny, but you still have a platform for
Yep.
it. That's I don't take that for granted. I'm very grateful for that platform.
Do you think your indie background shaped how you approach your syndicated work?
Definitely, definitely. It's almost like you know, the people that the artists from that World War III history, World War III Illustrated. I have so much respect for them, and they really they understand how privileged they are to be able to even have this, to even have the opportunity to put these things together. And so much so that when the most recent issue is filled with artists from the Middle East, from Israel,
Mhm.
Iran, Gaza Strip, and people just kind of like, okay, this is their story to tell. We're going to step back,
Yeah.
just kind of appreciating uh, that kind of eyewitness version of what needs to be said. Um, and so, but at the same time, it's like you're gonna see these things happening and not say anything. That's not cool, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, that reminds me of, the Nib. I collected all of those volumes
Yeah.
from the pandemic era, the Nib. I loved all of that for that very reason, right? And almost I think almost for the subconsciously the same reason you mentioned of, about going, like, to the Smithsonian and having these physical archives and really memorializing your work. I wanted to see what was happening then, to some in some respect, and keep that record of my even though it's of my own, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, they printed and whoever else bought the nib at that time, but sorry to see them not in production now or publication now. I'd love to see that brought back in some
I
capacity,
know. I was thinking
Um,
about the nib too when we were talking about that. They did some great, great work.
yeah, they did really, really good stuff. Um, Going back to, I guess, the indie approach to syndicated work, and this is for you, Maritza. Do you think your indie roots and even, collegiate roots are what brings something different to the space for you? Like, is it because of that? You think you have that sort of voice or viewpoint on your material?
I guess so. I mean, it's I don't have much to compare it to. It's just what it is. I think like it definitely is a motivating factor. I think like the attitude of it is very like you have to do everything yourself.
Yeah,
Um, and that's very much the kind of artist that I am. I don't start a project thinking I'm gonna have any help. I'm just ready to do everything on my own.
yeah,
Um, which was kind of like the values that were instilled as an art student and coming out of college. If you want a project to get done, you can't wait for a publisher to come and pick it up and tell you you're the greatest thing in the world. You just have to get started and do it
right.
yourself. And if someone does come along, that's great. But if not, like you still have your story to tell and you can tell it any way you want. You can always, lower the production value as long as you're sending your message. It almost doesn't matter. I think like Isabella's from an era of like just Xerox zines. You just go to the copy center and you just like do it like rough and tumble. Now like I'm lucky enough to have like the resources of the resale lab and everything like that, so we can.
Yeah,
And like you once in a while you get a book deal, or once in a while you get King Features come along and like, give you a little bit of a platform. But every time I start something, it's very like it all has to come from me. everything else is just kind of a nice bonus.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Have you fun little nugget here. Have you maybe both of you here, have you snuck any work in that feels indie into like the large ecosystem?
It all kind I feel like for me, it's all, like, has painted with that lens a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't know any other way to do it, really. That just kind of feels like the voice that's most honest to me. And indie is also one of these words that has a little bit of a subjective
Yeah.
meaning. Like, if I think, like, if, one of us got, like, a movie option tomorrow, I don't think that we would turn into a different artist and and make something different than what we've been making. It's all kind of painted with that lens, at least I think so.
So so you
Marissa, I love hearing about how your values and how that came from you just assumed you're going to have to do everything yourself, and that's absolutely resonates with me. And one thing I really appreciate about when you did come on board is that your voice was so clear and uncensored, and you kind of infused these topics that I hadn't seen any of the other six chicks tackle, like, um, depression or, rotting, that kind of like all these like insomnia, like you delved into these mental health topics and somehow made them funny and approachable, um, in a way that really brought a lot of great energy to Six Chicks. I think sometimes we tend to like go back to our safe topics, and I'll do a joke about this and a joke about that, and then you sort of like broke ground, and that was a kind of gave us another exponential like opening with
That
what
means
we
a
could
lot
talk
coming
about.
from you, honestly. That
No, absolutely, absolutely. You should feel very much appreciated and respected for that.
wow, that means a lot. Isabella's
Oh,
a
that's
legacy. She's like
she
the
really is. She really
original
is.
chick of Six Chicks, so
Honestly, Isabella's
high,
being
high
very
praise.
modest here. She's being very modest here, but Isabella, you are a titan, especially here
Yeah.
at King.
Well, it's funny with how, the whole thing about self-censorship, like you don't realize how how you do that to yourself even unconsciously, right? And like, when the newspapers were first there, it's like, oh, this is a comic strip by women, so there's going to be lots of jokes about cats and fashion and shoes, and there were, but so to have new voices come in with new perspectives is like it's like, okay, the tent is getting bigger, this is
Oh
a good
yeah,
thing.
Yeah,
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 yeah. I mean, obviously, this is why this is all pointing again. Another editorial piece. We need to have a Six Chicks like sit down episode and
Right,
really
right,
dig in,
right.
right, and just talk about that variety because Bianca's obviously very different
Oh my gosh,
from
yeah.
us all here, and another exceptional voice and another viewpoint that's great. And Stephanie's amazing, and I'd love to see if we can bring on some historical Six Chick members. I mean, Antelnus can join us. That'd be fun, right? And we can talk through the history of all that stuff. We'll see. We'll see if something like that can be cooked up.
that would
I'll get CJ on it. CJ will definitely. I think she'll be excited by something like that. Um, Going back to MoCCA, though, this is the fun part. MoCCA is a lot of fun, right? If we haven't sold this to you already, we're selling it now, right? MoCCA is a lot of fun. Last year, I don't know if you noticed, Isabella, but I had never tabled on behalf of a company before. So that was my first experience tabling and exhibiting, especially for Comics Kingdom. I think this was Comics Kingdom or King Features' first time tabling there as well, right? And so wow, actually thinking about that for a second. And we're there for round two, more prepared. I think I'm even more excited this year, learning what I've learned, coming to the forefront with our offerings, et cetera, and what we're doing there. Plus what's coming down the pipeline and new messaging, all that sort of fun stuff, right? And I'm really excited to be there. Um, we're gonna have the prints, we have cartooning strips, I should say, for kids. We're gonna have setups for all that stuff. Video player out there so people can see the story that we're talking about, that legacy and all. So our table setup is gonna be pretty unique, I think, compared to the space, right? But you know, I'd be remiss if I said it before, if I don't call out how our table is almost Maritza's table times two, right? She helped us really get to where we're going to be. And so what's your table going to be like, Maritza?
My table, I'm on table 38, so I'm a shameless plug. Yeah, I don't know. I think I mean, like physically, we're talking like
Yeah,
how
I
we
mean, well, more so energy, right? I mean, physically,
sure.
let's let the fans come and see it, right, and
Okay.
see all that stuff there. But I think more so what you're going to be evoking at what your setup is going to be like,
Yeah.
what they can expect, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, like I had already said, I do a lot of risograph printing. That's kind of like my one of my first loves that I print at the SBA Riso Lab. So we're going to see a lot of risograph work, which is going to be
Yeah,
like very bright colors. Usually like a combination of maybe like 2 to 4 colors. It has a very distinct look to it. So it's going to be like a combination of like prints that are, cat themed, fantasy themed, and a lot of mini zines and like small things that you can come. So I like to keep a lot of small things on my table because, people come and they only have $1 or something. So you can
yeah,
always get something at my table. You can get a button or a sticker or something for, a small amount. Usually try to have something for everybody there. And I think like Isabella said this too. I think like one of the best parts of doing it is just good conversation, like being able to talk to people
yeah,
face to face. I do meet people there that are familiar with my work online or from working cats or from Six Chicks or whatever. Um, but it means something totally different when you're seeing them in person, and it's so much more than just like a like on a post or a comment or whatever. Having that conversation where you talk about a strip that you've made or
yeah,
I I think those interactions are totally priceless for me. I think like one of my favorite interactions was like one year I had sold a print to a girl, and then years later she had come back at a different MoCCA and had said this was she introduced me to her partner and said like the print that I got at your table was my very first gift to my person here. And now we're moving in together and we just framed it and we're putting it up in our apartment
that's so
together.
nice.
And my heart just bursts with love. Like that, those are the kind of interactions where like you can't get that anywhere else. It's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
That is very nice. That is very nice. How about Isabella? What's your best or weirdest interaction at MoCCA?
I think it might have been where I had uh, brought in some back issues of World War III Illustrated, and this man came up and very quietly just bought all of them. And that's where I was getting back to like, okay, this must be the comics historian, that didn't somebody very quiet, but who's like knows their stuff. So like I say, you just never know. And then also, the fun thing about tabling at the National Cartoonist Society is that we split the table like every 2 hours. You rotate, and there's like
Hmm.
3 artists at the table at a time. So by the time you spend a weekend with like 9 different cartoonists, it is so fun. I mean, you get to catch up on their past projects, their projects that they're working on at that moment,
Yeah.
and you know how it is when you're trying to produce work or get a book done. You're sitting there with your sketch pad or your iPad the whole time,
Yeah.
and when else would you be able to have that sneak preview or look behind the scenes backstage in that way? It's just amazing.
Yeah, actually, one of my favorite things, I'm gonna call him out here as a good friend, Jason Chatfield. A friend of everyone here. He's obviously gonna be at the booth. I love going there because I get to catcall Jason. Yeah, and his just his beautiful hair, and let everyone in the crowd know that Jason is there. But now that I love that same thing, like being able to interact with people. Um, one of the joys that I get specifically in this seat, and being at MoCCA last year, and I know I'm gonna face it again this year, and this is what I'm so excited by, I guess, is that same question we talked about before, like, "Wait, you can go back to 1922?" Right?
Yeah.
this platform has all of that stuff, and it's like, wait, Popeye's still alive? You know, even though it should feel that's a bittersweet type of thing. Like it should, like, what do you mean he's still? Of course he's right, that sort of thing, and like, hey, of course Hagar's still here, but I love um reintroducing people to the things that they remember from the past and so that are still here and going strong, etc. And again, and then talking about the lore of all the stuff that I grew up with. Part of the reason I'm here at King is because I remember being a boy reading Hagar in Brooklyn, and like I did. I loved Hagar. Vito Bailey, not so much. He wasn't my guy, but Hagar, I loved
Yeah.
Hagar. And so I'm here and being able to share that with people in however limited or great fashion it is, obviously time permitting, being able to spend some time with them and talk through that stuff and show them that we have a collection of material here, or they can come to this website and read all of it and all that sort of stuff. That's the sauce for me. So yeah, I'm excited just to meet our fans, meet our people. What you said earlier, Isabella, meet our people.
I think that's
Yeah, I think
important.
that kind of goes back to the to that fascinating gray or multicolored area between indie and superhero, because you saw that happening with Spider-Man. Like
Yeah,
all of a sudden, like that, not all of a sudden, I'm sure it was years and years of work, but you had the sense that, like, okay, now Spider-Man is accessible to an incredible variety of artists. The animation in the recent movies is just like so experimental. It's so exciting.
yeah,
And then King Features is doing something quite similar with the whole Popeye
yeah.
cast of characters, to see that it's like, oh, this is going to come into the future. This is going to evolve and uh, be exciting in a different way.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I mean, I think you're talking about I Like Popeye, right? And that one, that's our latest, I guess, iteration of him and of that character. But I love moments like that too, because yeah, you get the legacy fan that remembers Popeye, probably from the cartoon history, which is probably where most of America's was introduced to Popeye in quote unquote mainstream way, right? And so they remember the spinach pop and they remember all the tunes and I am what I am, and they lose sight of like the Wiffle Hen and how he actually got his powers and all of that stuff there. And so I get to nerd out for a little bit and speak to someone and say, no, the spinach wasn't it. It was Whifflehan. And, actually, Olive was more badass than he was 10 years
Right.
prior to that. And I get to talk
Yeah,
about all that
like
history and all that stuff.
everybody's doing
Yeah.
their own take on Olive Oil, and how
Yeah.
she dresses, and you'll see fans. I mean, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Of course, Comic Con has the best costumes by
Yeah.
far, but
Oh,
there's a lot of cosplay that's starting to pop up at MoCCA Fest, and I definitely saw at least 2 Olive Oils
yeah.
dressed up last time I was there.
I'll be happy if we get a Flash Gordon this year. If we give me a Flash, I'll be really, really excited there. Or a Ming or something. Um, well, before we wrap here, obviously, this is the segue into Comics Kingdom. To some, obviously, I'm representing Comics Kingdom. Isabella, you're going to spend some time at our booth as well, Maritsa as well for a second. And you guys are on the floor doing your own things as well. But I guess I wanted to ask you both directly and indirectly. Um, what does it mean to you as artists, I guess, to seize? I know what it means for me. I know what it means for King Features as a brand to be there amongst independent artists. I think we respect the medium. One of the things that I'm very proud of is that we've been one of those entities and will continue being one of those entities that really, in the wake of something like a BuzzFeed going AI or something, we will not. This is there is value in human drawn intelligence, design, the errors, the mistakes, all of that is what makes again that magic. And so losing any bit of that, I think it would be horrible. And so I'm really proud of that. And being in this forum with artists that are the lifeblood of what we do, I think that's what excites us as a brand and as a participant. And that's how we view this. But how do you view us there? Again, we're not the indie guys, quote unquote, but Comics Kingdom. Like, what does that mean to an artist for us to be there?
That's a great question. I think MoCCA is maybe like the perfect place for Comics Kingdom to be. I think like they really like are an entity that's going to appreciate like the legacy of wealth of art that goes back for that is one thing that Comics Kingdom has that I don't think anybody else at MoCCA does have, is this like long-standing legacy of comics that have like stood the test of time and, you know, bring a lot of significance. It is the backbone in a lot of ways to many of the other artists that are in that room, because they kind of paved the way for other people to explore the medium. Um, and being there is, it's like you said, like people come there because they recognize it from their childhood, but they're going to be there with their kids too. And
Mhm.
you're building equity for that IP with a new generation. And as you bring in, you know, new perspectives and like, we're going to champion olive oil more than we champion Popeye or something like that. We leave space for like everything to evolve into something new. And just having a presence there, like, is just making it more relevant, you know? I think it sounded like you got a great reception last year, and, like, every year you do it, you're gonna see more people you recognize, and you're gonna build, you know, more connection there, and I think it's just gonna keep getting better.
Oh, that's our hope for sure. How about Isabella? What does it mean, I guess, for eh, though we're Comics Kingdom, I guess a syndicate to be in the room with all the artists?
I mean, I think it's fantastic because, you know, I mean, the era that first built the syndicates is gone, pretty much.
Mhm.
But somehow, or not somehow, I'm sure with a lot of hard work, King Features and Comics Kingdom has managed to evolve and you know, show that it cares about the artists and the entertainment field, um, without staying static in a way. You know, they just like, okay. I remember when the various iterations of the of Comics Kingdom website and how hard you had to work to get it to be relatable and ease of use, and the archive in particular is incredibly wonderful and easy to use, very intuitive. Um, so I guess I'm very appreciative to be part of you know, an organization that's like willing to innovate. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's pretty important.
I guess almost self-serving a bit. Do you think this sort of this crossover matters to readers? You know, obviously, I think as artists and participants in the industry, this matters for sure. I'm wondering out loud, do readers see that? Do you think readers see that? I should say.
It's hard for me to say because I think people who access newspapers, or even get emails for their online comics
Hmm.
are a pretty separate audience from people who come to comics festivals
Yeah.
or get all their humor from social media. So I don't feel like I'm equipped to talk about that really.
I don't think anyone is. This is more a
Yeah.
general question, right? Because even sitting on the business side of things, if I take my business hat off, you know, I don't know how to answer that completely either. Again, because I do think we operate in a super saturated attention market with unlimited possibility to capture that attention at any point, right? And you're competing with Netflix, you're competing with Apple Music, you're competing with newspapers, you're competing with magazines, you're competing with Instagram, you're competing with comics and other comics. And so we don't have our water cooler moments anymore. We don't have unified experiences where we did 20 years ago, you know. And so it's very hard to say what you know, to really definitively say this makes a difference to X, Y, and Z audiences. So, you know, maybe peeling that back a little bit, do you think this could in maybe this could invigorate readers? How about that? This could be a step into bringing back a water cooler moment, if you will. At least in our medium, at least for comics. Yeah.
No, I think it's incredibly valuable, and the parallels that I can think of for Comics Kingdom would be, you know, like a bookstore like Barnes and Noble or a
Right.
library where you know you'll see this kind of innovation where libraries are like having um, a day where all the kids can come in and just build
Right.
Legos, or you're having a day um, at the bookstore where authors meet the author kind of thing. And I think you know. the fact that these innovations are happening is a sign of other things collapsing, but maybe it's going to be okay because people are rising to the moment.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And I don't feel doomsday-ish about this at all. I hope that doesn't come across in any which way, especially to anyone watching this at this point, at this stage. I think the future's bright for all of this, inclusive of Comics Kingdom. I think MoCCA Arts Fest, really to me is a testament of that. The fact that so much foot traffic. I literally remember this. This had to be maybe 3 years ago, which is like probably 4 years ago. This was my first foray into it. Seeing a line that was about 2 to 3 blocks, city blocks long, for as an entry point to this. And my umbrellas went out like, whoa, 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 what's happening here? You know, what's happening? Obviously, I'm a participant, but what's happening here? I wasn't a participant there. And that energy still being alive and well is what tells me this is going to be fine. It's going to look different, but it's going to be fine.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
think as long as you're continuing to put yourself out there, you're going to find your place. Obviously, you won't find anything if you stay home. Uh,
Yeah, just knock on everyone's door in the city. Have you
yeah,
seen MoCCA
right.
Fest? Have you been to MoCCA Fest? Have you been to MoCCA
Yeah,
Fest?
right. But I think, you're doing everything right by, you know, uh, putting yourself out there. And, it the more people show up, the more people will understand that there's a demand for this, and which
Yeah,
leads to possibly more of a supply for this. So the more
yeah,
people show up, the better it is. And the more that people like King Features show up, the better it is.
yeah. Well, again, thank you.
I
Well, thank
have
you both.
I
Go
have
ahead.
one souvenir of yours, Maritsa. I bought your postcard. I think it was a Six Chase cartoon that, and maybe it was also you made it into a postcard, and it was like invitation to introverts, and it
Yeah.
was like, and you could check off which box was your excuse for not showing up, and I think that sums up perfectly MoCCA Fest because it's like you want to be there, you want to participate, but like say 90% of the people there are introverts, I would have to
Yes.
say. Um,
That is
It's
true.
like
and
the
I
That
and
is
I
also
ultimate
still
true.
have
introvert
it.
convention.
It's
Yeah.
such a treasure.
That is also true. But you know what? That's quick lightning round. Why not? Right? Favorite MoCCA purchase you've ever made, and that might be it. I guess Isabel on your side.
For me,
Ooh.
that's definitely up there. Yeah.
Oh, that's tough. There's so many good zines. I love a good mini zine. I think that I could probably point to 10 mini zines that I really love. Like those are the the anytime I can get like an art object where it's like you have to see it to believe it. Those are my favorite pieces to get at MoCCA.
Ah,
There
well,
was
I
a small comic by the people who do comics carousel, Creota Wilberg, and it was a little mini comic about the history of the uterus done in a comic book format.
I love that.
It was just so funny and
I
good.
love that.
this isn't me shilling. I promise. I promise. But Maritza, my favorite purchase was your shadow cat print. I have it framed up in my
Oh, good.
kitchen.
I'm
I
so
love
glad.
what you did there with the lighting and the shadow work. Anyway, that was my favorite purchase.
Oh, that's very sweet.
What's a comic you think more people should know about?
Ooh,
Hmm, that's a great question.
yeah. This is a hard
Mm.
question.
Now this is what I'm gonna insert the Jeopardy.
I know,
Yes, the
right? And
Jeopardy
it's like,
music. Yeah,
what?
the Jeopardy music. It's,
What is Popeye for 1,000? No, I kid.
I read last year at SPX I picked up Canon. Drawn and Quarterly came out with a book called Canon. I want to make sure I get their name right.
You just reminded me of
I
one.
want to say Lee Lai. That was probably like my most recent one that I think I really liked. Canon by Lee Lai.
You just reminded me of a plug. I'm gonna put it. It is. I don't know if this is the
Oh,
Gulf.
the Gulf. Yes, I remember you talked to me about this one before.
Yeah, Adam D'Souza, an
Yeah.
amazing Canadian talent. I really love this material.
Yeah, Lee Lai is also Canadian. A lot of good comic work comes
A
out of
lot of stuff coming out of Canada.
Yeah.
Our friends up
Imagine
north.
a government that subsidizes art.
Yes.
Imagine that.
How about you, Isabella?
Well, just because it popped into my mind, I'm gonna steer you over to I think she will be there this year. Creota Wilberg's booth. Just because you'll have that sense of discovery and delight with the variety. It's a very kind of a niche area that she specializes in. It's a growing field, and I've participated in it. It's called graphic medicine. But so
Mm.
she teaches classes in anatomy, and she's very interested in medicine, and it lends itself to, it's kind of like that dark humor that you would get with an interest in medicine sometimes. But yeah, that's my plug for another thing to poke around and find.
Well, again, thank you both. This has been an exceptional conversation. I really, really have fun with this. I wish we can actually go on all day.
I
Unfortunately, we
know.
can't. But we'll see each other in person, obviously, in about a week.
Yeah.
And have some fun, obviously, and we'll see each other hopefully after that too. To everyone here, obviously, thank you for joining us. I want to say, from the bottom of our heart here at Comics Kingdom, we appreciate everyone that participates in that comic journey online and offline, and still finds this medium valuable, of course. Comics are always evolving. Spaces like MoCCA, I think, remind us where a lot of that energy starts. Small tables, big ideas, and creators figuring out things in real time. I want to, one, huge thanks to you, Maritsa and Isabella, for joining me today, bringing that perspective into the kingdom. If you're heading to MoCCA, please come find Comics Kingdom. We're table 63. We'll make this, I'll correct that for sure in the captions below. Say hello, maybe leave with something unexpected. But besides that, this has been Inside the Kingdom, and we'll see you next time.